Hey folks, Green Stuff Gav here. We're back with another painting from the Advent Challenge. This time, Hasslefree's Apprentice Raisa, who totally doesn't look like a Disney princess. Now, she's been put on a base, which I've sculpted, of the flagstone effect. So, because this is a messy dry brush, we're going to do the base first. And this is pretty much just going to be a whole set of layering greys. But you can see we're still doing it with the paint wet on the brush and on the palette. So as we mix in the lighter grey, that'll give us some blended highlights. We can already see, even though the camera pulls out of focus, what a difference that makes. So from the basin, which is literally just a couple of dry brushes, we're starting with a green. Well, Sotec blue, which is a sort of greenish blue. And I'm trying to think of her name. Elsa from Frozen wears like a blue and white. So what I thought would be really cool is to do the blue, but then to also blend it into the white. So first of all, we're getting a good solid coat. See here, we've watered the paint down, thick brush. Just literally going all over, picking out the colour. This helps often when planning paint jobs, just to make sure you can see where the colours are going and what shades you're going for. So yeah, really helps to help you gauge what shade, if the shades are right and what your colour palette's going to be. Although there is obviously plenty of reference photos about, is blindly following colours has never been my strong suit. So here we can see I'm using literally the same paint but going over on a second coat. As I keep my paints quite translucent, by doing the same colour over the top can give us some highlighting and a nice solid colour. So, quite straightforward. We can probably see the camera stands on the other side, so I keep coming out of focus. But it was just an experiment. It's easier to edit, but I'm left-handed, so I don't like having the camera that side. But pretty much all over coat except for the shaded parts. All the raised areas are getting a good solid covering. And then here I've decided I'm going to mix in some grey. You see I'm mixing it while it's still wet on the palette, just to get that little bit of a lighter colour. We're starting off at the top. Because the previous layer was still wet, that means we can sort of blend it in, get a nice wet blend going on. When you see there, that was a little bit sharp. So we mix in some of the previous colour, we can get a nice blend going. So this is a mixture of keeping the colour lighter the higher up and also highlighting. Quite a straightforward process. Just having a bright light as well also helps, because it helps you spot where the highlights should be, and then you can bring the colours up and give a good gauge of where your shading is. Now these are a lot of the Hasslefrees are really lovely sculpts, crisp detail and flowing robes. Just makes an absolute joy to paint. Really easy to follow, and gives that enough blank space to give colours where you can play around a bit. So here it's literally just adding more and more grey to the mix, and then when I go into the wrong areas, just mix some of the previous blue back in. See here, even more white, just to give her the raised colour. Now, I'm spending quite a lot of time on the dress here, but that's where most of the colour, most of the eye is going to be drawn. There's very little skin showing on this lass. So spending some time just making sure we get all the blend right. Just, yeah. Again, nice highlighting. So I'm happy with the colours. Then I'm going to leave this to dry and move on to skin tone. This is Cadian Flesh Tone. A little bit pale. I'd prefer to have gone darker, but I wanted the skin to really stand out, so I've gone quite pale off the bat. And as with the previous, as with Sotic Green, we've got plenty of water in there. I'm going to do a couple of coats, and we're trying to avoid where the dress is still wet, so we don't mix blue into our skin tone. Things like picking out the fingers, around the hands. We see underneath here, because I cut her off and put her on a sculpted base, I tend to glue the base tabs back underneath, so anyone that buys these minis can tell who the manufacturer is. So it's quite easy to see where it says Hasslefree on the underside. And yeah, just picking out the colours. All the skin tones quite nice and clean. Just taking our time. Unfortunately, again, camera's in the wrong place, but just picking out the face, the neck, shoulders. But doing my best just to keep a layer of dark colour between where the skin meets the cloth, because that will help give it some texture and some definition. While I'm doing this, I'm already thinking about the next colour. So I come out with Rakarth Flesh because she's got a sort of an off-white coloured hair. So Rakarth Flesh, just picking all of the skin, all of the hair out. As previously noted, like I say, multiple thin coats. Just one basic coat to start with. Let that dry. Once that's dried, pick it out again in the same colour to give ourselves some highlighting. We can't see because, again, camera, but for the first coat I'm doing a fairly solid colour, and then we'll be doing almost a wet brushing afterwards to pick out the highlights. This also, again, blocking the colour and gives us a good idea of what's going on with our colour palette. So I'm using the Rakarth Flesh we've just used, adding it to the Cadian Flesh Tone, and that will give us a highlight colour. And that will give us a lovely pale skin, which will stand out well against the blue of the dress. So we can't see, but I'm going over where all the highlights are, just to give it some nice depth to the colour. Lovely view of the brush. But yeah, I don't think I'll be putting the camera on the left in future. Like I say, it makes editing easier, but just terrible footage. So, skin's had a bit of a highlight. Out with the Rakarth Flesh, and we're going to effectively pick out all the highlighted parts of the hair. But this is a mixture of a wet brush and a basic highlight. So now I'm mixing in a bone colour, Wraith Bone, because it's slightly lighter. And that'll give us a nice highlight colour. Finding an old dead brush. And we're being very careful about dry brushing, or wet brushing here. just on the very raised edges, just to give us a nice lighter highlight to the hair. Out comes a nice dark skin tone, which is Tuscarora fur. Just picking the lips out. She's not overly made up in the pictures I've seen, so keeping it quite subtle. Very carefully picking the eyes out. This is very, and while I'm there, pick out the shoes. Just because, again, the white will add a nice bit of contrast to the rest of the mini. Had originally planned on leaving them black or maybe going to a silver, but I really didn't like the idea. Now, because all the palette's still wet with the paint, we can go in and just tidy up some of the bits where we've made mistakes. Just tidying up the face. And there is Elsa from Frozen. Thanks for watching and have fun.